Marquita, who is my second oldest daughter, has a prayer partner in Africa. And they have been faithful in ministry together. And she began to speak out of the blue, and she said, Marquita, you need to know that God loves your dad. He loves your dad so much. He's getting ready to do something for your dad. I don't know what it is, but he's going to do something for your dad.
My husband and I, when we first got married, we talked about there were certain things in our past that was very, very, very painful that we really did not want to talk about. But that was one of the things that he had shared with me about having a child out of wedlock. At the time, he was having so many issues, being a young man and being in the military, and he just didn't know where she was at.
I don't really have a lot of memories. I had pictures of him, and I had things that people told me about my dad. Growing up for me without a father was weird. It was weird for me because my siblings had dads. And although I heard great things about my dad, I didn't know him in the sense of have a relationship with him. I knew who he was, but it was always such a missing piece. It was something that I ultimately got used to.
Over the years, I saw the pain in his face, or there could be certain things that could be going on, and you could see, I could see as his wife, that it was really very hard for him. But through it all, he poured his love out for all of his children.
The years that I was apart from my daughter were some of the most painful, miserable years of my life. I would phrase it like this: it was the greatest personal sin and the greatest regret of my entire life. I was tormented because of it.
I probably looked for him all of my life, but I do remember starting officially looking for him when I was 16 years old. Looking for someone back then was a lot more difficult. I called talk shows and told them to find my dad. I would look up things in the phone book. I would try to just find anything related to him. And I looked for my dad every year of my life.
In the 40-year span, when I say 40 years, I speak in the language of approximately. The more, this might sound paradoxical, but the more I grew in my faith, knowing that my sins were forgiven, the absence of my daughter hurt more as I grew.
I didn't become fearful until I knew that I had found him, and that was this last time, and I was just afraid of rejection.
I was horrified if I found her. See, I had been programmed that she would hate me. I was convinced that if I found her, one time I was Googling her name, and in Portsmouth, Virginia, I Googled Lakeisha Kearney, and I zeroed in on his house. And I said, is it her? Is it her? I wonder if that's her. And I'm praying for her, and I'm praying for her, and I'm like, you know what? I wasn't with her growing up. And if she hates me and I inject myself in her life, I will cause her more pain. And I said, haven't I caused enough pain?
3 a.m. on the morning that my dad and I reconnected, I wake up in the morning and I know it was the Holy Spirit to say, go to Facebook and spell Marquita's name like your friends. And I went to Facebook, spelled it just like my friend's name, Marquita Joyce, and she was the first hit on Facebook. So I clicked on her pictures, and I found a picture of my dad, and she was wishing him happy birthday. And she tagged him and said, I want to wish my dad, Stephen Joyce, a happy birthday. I looked at the date and it was my dad's birthday. And I got scared because I said, I know that this is my dad. What are the odds that her name is Marquita Joyce. His name is Stephen Joyce. This is the date. This is my dad.
I got a call from Marquita on Monday. She says, Dad, I got an inbox from somebody named Raven and want to know, did you have a daughter named Lakeisha? I said, what? And then Marquita began to ask me questions. And I said, Marquita, stop asking me questions and just read the text. Marquita knew that she did not have permission to talk to me, nor did anyone in my life who knew, because of the pain and the regret that I had. I said, quit asking me questions, just read the text. So she read the text. She said, Dad, she wants your information. I said, send me hers. So I got the information from Raven, and I reached over about an arm's length and grabbed a picture that I've held on and cherished for 40 years. I took the picture of the picture, and I included these words in the text.
Your dad said, if this is a picture of your mom, then I am your granddad. And it was a picture of me, and I probably was about 2 or 3 years old. And I was so floored because I probably hadn't seen that picture in 40 years myself. And I was in my car in the parking lot at City Hall, just trying to wrap my head around everything. And I was crying uncontrollably at that point. And she was like, your dad wants to talk to you.
Keisha's daughter had reached out to him. I just knew it was the Lord, and the joy that came over me was that he can finally get some relief. He can finally be free of this.
I opened up one of my Bibles and I underlined these words. Lord, I am unworthy of the least of your mercies. For God to do this for me, for God to give me back this crown jewel, this pearl of great price, for God to bring my daughter back in my life. It has been the greatest joy, an undeserved blessing. It has been a picture of God's grace. The first time we talked on the phone, I was prepared for anything. I had determined in my heart, if I ever got that door opened, I was going to go through that door. I didn't care if it was a raging bull on the other side. When we first talked on the phone, she never called me Stephen.
When I talked to my dad the first time, he made everything okay for me, honestly. I thought that I was going to come in and say to him, to just say, hey, Dad, I love you. I don't have anything. I don't hate you. I want you in my life. And he did something to free me of anything else. He took full responsibility. And he set the stage to allow me to be and feel however I wanted to be and feel. And that made it even easier for me to navigate and be myself with my dad.
And then she says, can I FaceTime you before I get there? Of course you can FaceTime me. Our first FaceTime, I've been looking at her picture for years, the baby picture. And when she popped up on the screen, I said, oh my goodness, she hasn't changed a bit. I was so elated. She was smiling. I was smiling. We laughed. We loved. And before, so we FaceTime a couple times. And what it was like before we actually came together, I was wondering, I was dreaming. I'm driving down the highway one day and said, I heard you don't dream in color, so I'm not dreaming. It was exceedingly abundantly above all I could ask or think from the Lord.
So when we were getting closer to my dad's house, my husband got a text on his phone or an alert from Facebook to say it's National Daughters Day because he always posts about our daughter. And he says, "Is today National Daughters Day?" And I said, "It can't be National Daughters Day. Look up, Google it right now." And he's like, "I already Googled it. It's National Daughters Day." So I was just like, how amazing is this? Like, no one could have put this together. So we're literally not even a mile away from my dad's house. We are turning on to his street at this point. And so I get out the car knowing that it's National Daughters Day, that I'm about to see my dad in person for the first time in about 40 years.
I'm standing on the front porch. My wife is standing on the front porch beside me. It's okay, baby. It's okay. They pulled up. She got out the car. I was nervous. I was scared. I was elated. I was full of joy. I can't even articulate what I was feeling. All I knew is this: I was going to get me a hug. And I didn't know if she was ready for a hug.
I was just completely overwhelmed with everything. I thought I had cried enough happy tears all week, but seeing my dad stand there and see him receive me, it was just overwhelming. So he cried, I cried, we cried, the people on FaceTime cried, we all cried together.
Overwhelming. I don't think I've ever seen my husband cry so much since we've been married, and seeing him being relieved, it brought relief to me, because I knew that, okay, God, we knew that your hand was in this, and we knew that you were taking us to another level, because that was one thing that he needed to settle in his heart so that he could move on. And so it was a time of rejoicing.
I don't think, once the car door opened, I don't believe that there was any speaking.
There was none.
No, you know what? You spoke first, Dad. Not right away, but as I walked towards you, you said, wait a minute. If that has to consist of speaking, because he had to kind of take a breath, and his shoulders slumped, and he was just taking it in, and I paused, and I just grabbed my face. I started crying. He started crying. And yeah, so you spoke first.
It was me. It was
indescribable.
It was indescribable.
I can't think of a word either. Like, amazing seems too small. The funny thing about that is now I get it when my grandmother would try to describe how she felt about God. And when they would say that there weren't any words that really could describe his magnificence. And I don't know if I've ever had that feeling before in my life, because even though I have children, I expected them. I knew they were coming, the exact date. They had always been with me. But with my dad, something that I had hoped for and longed for all of my life, didn't ever know if it was going to happen, but believing that it would, being there in that moment, it's indescribable. I can't find a word that adequately fits. I don't want people to get it confused with the struggles that I had for not having him, or because people often miss that part. Yes, I wanted my dad. And yes, I didn't have anything or any ill feelings towards him, because I had no reason to feel anything negative towards him. But that doesn't mean that I didn't struggle. It doesn't mean that I didn't wonder. It doesn't mean that I didn't long for him. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a hole in my heart, because it was. And I filled that hole with a lot of accomplishments. And it never seemed to be enough. And when I reconnected with my dad, I felt that whole, when your heart gets broken, it's like a physical pain. But when your heart mends, it's also a feeling that I can't describe, because it's like I felt it happen. But what I needed was for my dad to affirm me. And I am always looking at these old movies, of these clan movies, and when they introduce themselves, they're able to identify themselves by the clan they come from. I didn't understand my clan until my dad and I were reconnected. So now I'm able to say I am Keisha, daughter of Stephen, wherever I go.
Our family is knitted together by God. You know, both of us being married and divorced with children coming together. And when we're together, we don't use the step word. You know, unless we tell people that we were married and we have combined family, they don't even know, because either they're called me moms or they're called him pops. I was excited about meeting her. That's my baby. I told her yesterday before she left, I said, oh, my baby. She calls me moms. So it's almost like just another piece of the puzzle that God is working out in our life. So it's been an amazing time to see even the siblings, how they're bonding like crazy, and just to hear them talking, you know, texting each other on video chats and different things. We just know God is in the midst of all of this. And so I'm excited to see how this is all going to work out to God's glory.
I know that it will further the kingdom. It's because we don't take any glory from God. We don't act like it was us. We know it wasn't us, because there is no way that it could have been us, because under our own power, it would have not happened this way, or it would have happened on our own timetable, and who knows what that outcome would have been. We just continue to just be us and walk in truth. And when you are who you are, and when you are a son and a daughter of the Most High, and you're being who you were designed to be, the outcome is always a furthering of the kingdom.
One reason we know that we will be together until God calls us home, or the rapture, is there's nothing fake about our relationship.
Nothing.
It is founded in two areas of love: love for one another and love for God.
Mm-hmm.
And what can separate us from the love of Christ? Nothing.